So normally, nobody can hear us during this time. I still don't see the
But right
stream,
now,
but right now they can. Okay, is it going to go? Usually we only have a 20-second delay. There we go. Okay. Fun times. Holy
I
crap.
know. Technical difficulties. Here we are.
Yeah, seriously. So
Welcome to technical weirdness world.
I'm gonna have to run this whole episode with my mouse, which is going to be a bit of a challenge.
Hmm.
That's all right.
It's just gonna test your old school quick draw skills.
Yeah, if I can remember what I named everything.
All
All right, here we go. 48-hour art check, round 149.
149. Yes.
This is the secret way about buttons. So strange. All right. So we've got Squatchy in the chat,
Hey, Squashy.
and nothing is working. So we've had to
Yeah.
restart both of our computers are being super weird. We've had to restart stuff several times, and so we'll see how it goes. And we got Victor as well.
Right. Hey,
Okay.
Victor.
So yeah, should we jump in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. What have you gotten done in the last 48 hours?
All right, so I finished the rough pencils for the page, and now I am working on basically doing the tight pencils for the page. And so, yeah, so I managed to get 2 panels of tight pencils and 1 full page of rough pencils finished, and the rest of it I'm hoping to get done at some point soon. So, yeah,
Cool. Yeah, that's
pretty
looking
much where
good.
yeah, and then the gig played some rock and roll. That went really well. It was a fun show. It was actually pretty busy, so that was good too. Because we have played a few bar shows where it's like 4 people, so it's kind of fun to actually have like a little bit of an audience.
Yeah.
And we freaked some people out, which I think you're kind of doing your job. Um,
What do you mean
there
you?
were
What do you mean you freaked him out?
Well, there was like okay, so there was this table of these kind of country-ish type people at the bar who were like right in the front,
Uh,
and they kind of came in at the end of a song where it's kind of a breakdown, so it could sound like more kind of traditional, just rock and roll. And then the next song was filled with lots of screaming, and they looked completely frightened. And I was like, "That's right,
yeah.
welcome to rock and roll." So anyway, I
That's
felt
funny.
like, well, we did our job. It was nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I saw several clips. I think it was on Instagram of your band. Is that where you're posting
Nice.
those? I know I saw them.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes.
if you wanna check out Josh's Instagram, you can see Note Saboteurs, who does the intro to this what do you call this show? Is that what we're doing today? I don't know. I'm completely totally screwed without my buttons. Anyway, this is so weird. This thing just isn't working. It's really driving me nuts. Um, so yeah, so I am working on a project that I can't show yet, but I think I'm going to be allowed to show it at some point in time, but I'm waiting for the client. So what I did is I mocked this up to kind of show some of the things that I'm learning. And later I'll see if my computer can handle like showing what's going on. But this was the last piece in a puzzle to be able to figure out this thing that I'm animating with Scott Circland. And basically, the cool part about this is that this is all rigged to a joystick, and so I have controls for the eyes, and then I have controls for the rest of the face. And normally, I'd have like the hair move and everything, but I did this in like 45 minutes, so it's not as like rigged up as I want. But what I was trying to figure out, which I'm really excited about, and I don't know if this is going to make any sense, is the opacity has an expression that is linked to the slider control, so that when the slider control hits a certain area, like if it's like greater than 0, then it turns the opacity on. And if it's less than 0, then it turns the opacity off. And that way I have 4 ears, and so they're parented to each other. And so when it's in front of his head because he's turning to the right or to the left, the front ear shows up.
Oh
But
no.
when it's behind his ear, or when it's behind his head, it disappears, and so it goes behind his head. So like kind of the basically what I'm saying is that the ear goes in front of and behind the head, but all of that is just 2D. So there's no like 3D stuff. So anyway,
That is cool for like rotational effects though, you know?
yeah.
I mean that's very cool.
Yeah, and I've got some other stuff that I did that is pretty rad looking. It's a character that Scott designed, but we're waiting on the okay from the client. I think they're excited for us to like show the process of us making this, but we don't want to get ahead of them. And I think they're going to do kind of a reveal and stuff. And so at some point in time on Scott's channel and my channel, you'll see us illustrating it and rigging it up and animating it and stuff, and super fun because it's got like, like I'm gonna do like blinking eyes, and it's got a hat that falls off, and he's got like arms that shoot out of things, and it's kind of like an Inspector Gadget style thing where stuff comes out of other compartments, and
That's awesome.
yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool. So it's been lots of conversations about weird stuff like how many different layers I need to make like simple stuff. I mean, there's hundreds of layers just to make this thing like make the head turn, make the torso turn, make the tire turn, give it like compression. So I've got like shocks built into it, and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, it'll be fun, and I'll be able to like have it turn, and while it's turning, I'll be able to control like eyelids to give it like emotions and stuff, and then I can change like the
No
colors of
way.
things, and all of it is based on controllers that are outside of the object itself, so that I don't have to go into each layer and do keyframe each layer. So I just have like 6 different joysticks, and I can control the whole thing with those 6 joysticks.
Oh wow, so you have like a little puppet
Yeah,
basically, but a little more rigged than even a standard puppet in animation. That's pretty cool.
yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, it's been a fun weekend. I taught myself that. I guess it's a what do you call it? Joysticks and sliders. It's a plug-in that you can buy and plug in. So that in combination with rubber hose, which is another plug-in, kind of gives me all the stuff that I'm going to do for this one, which will be fun. So
Wow. That's exciting, and that opens up a lot of possibilities, I think, for future stuff too. So that's
yeah,
very cool.
yeah, it's
Sweet.
it's really fun. So how about challenges for you?
Let's see. So playing a rock show on Friday, and then family stuff over the weekend. Like pretty much took out a good portion of my weekend. So it was more of just a time juggle, like not a bad struggle, just kind of the age old struggle of the creative where just trying to find the time to do the
Yeah,
work can be really taxing and complicated when you have a family.
yeah, right.
And then also when you have a little bit of a social life. So yeah,
Yeah,
so that was pretty much my biggest challenge. And then yeah, Final Fantasy's been one too.
I was gonna ask. So for those of you who haven't caught up, one of my biggest challenges has been video games for over a year, and it has not been one of Josh's challenges until just now when you bought us like an old NES emulator thing. So now you have Final Fantasy, which is time consuming and fun.
Yeah, it's
How's your Black Mage?
he's like a level 14 now. So I mean, considering I don't play that often, that's way faster than when I was a kid.
Yeah,
When I was a kid, just getting to like level 7 was like woohoo. Um, so yeah, but I'm definitely I still got like half the map to play. um, and probably won't be able to touch it for another week or so. But
Cool.
it's still fun to have,
Yeah.
and it is really hard to put down a video game when you're enjoying it, especially old school like 8-bit stuff. I love that stuff. So
Yeah. Just don't ever play Rocket League. You'll just quit comics. That's an addictive game.
I love it. All right.
Yeah,
So
challenges for me. I am still doing the single parent thing while my wife is in a play and she's commuting like 2.5 hours every day. So she'll have the kids while I'm at work, and then she takes off when I get home. And Saturday and Sunday, I had them all day, so it's fun. I get to spend time with them, but it's also time consuming. But it's like one of those things that's really good because she's really enjoying it, and this is kind of like what she gets to do, what she likes doing, and she loves performing. She's a great singer and everything, and so it's good. It's good. But being a single dad, being a what do you call it, a theater widower, um, is a little hard. Just because everything's a little bit more time consuming, and like my daughter's going to bed like a little bit later because it's summer, so she doesn't have to get up for school, and so that kind of eats into time. Um, but the main challenge was I'm used to complicated. Like I don't really understand programming, and I'm not great at math, and so like when I have to do like expressions in After Effects, like I can't have music on, I can't have an audiobook, like I have to like really focus, and that's mentally difficult to do. And like any distraction, my brain's like, what is that? Let's go look at that thing. And so like that's kind of just my own stupid brain is a challenge. But once I get it, it works pretty well. Once I figure it out, and then I can
yeah,
turn
I
the music
can
on and everything. But
I can relate to that though, because I think when you're in that different modality, it is very difficult to not just have like entirely, all consuming focus. Um, because that's definitely the type of thing that's hard to, like, you punch in the wrong number,
right,
Like, it's kind of similar to writing, I would guess.
yeah. Except in writing, if you have like a comma instead of a semicolon, the entire book doesn't break and stop working. So Victor's saying that One Up Games just announced a retro Ninja Turtle Academy cabinet and a Marvel Superheroes versus X-Men retro arcade cabinet, and then called
Oh,
me
yeah.
Mr. Mom, both of which are cool. So,
Sounds like a lovely distraction.
right. So what are your plans?
So I definitely plan to have at least a couple panels more. Like I should be at least probably about 2/3 done with the tight pencils by next time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also am hoping I hear back from a client. There's the client's setting up an actual full out store, like a retail location. So there's a pretty good reason why there's a lag in like feedback on the freelance work that I've been doing. But in that case, I definitely would like to get some feedback so I can get that thing off my plate. Although it's fun to work on. So
Yeah.
those are kind of my two plans ish things.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. What about
Um,
you?
for me, I more of this thing. And so I don't know if this is gonna make sense, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I need to rig the head. I need to rig all four eyelids, and then I have to figure out how the fingers are going to work because I think that's like one of the last things I figured out. Switch templates today, um, but there's more complicated version of that I've got to figure out. And then I should have what I need to do with that. I forgot to say that I also did all the storyboards for that animation over the weekend. So that was also something that I did. So anyway, I'm skipping an animatic after rigging and going to animation, and so I don't know when that's happening because I'm also waiting on the client,
Yeah.
and Scott is doing his part of it as well. So there's kind of some of that going on. Um, kind of like you and I did with him making it and me making it move. That's kind of what we're doing. So in the
Right.
meantime, I have 2/3 of the assets for a little that fish and that wasp and everything. I think I might still have that loaded. So this guy, if I've got some more downtime, I'm gonna rig him up and animate him because I've got kind of a storyboard where his like skin peels off and then his mouth opens up and a wasp comes out and that splatters, and so I'm not sure, but animation is my plan.
Nice.
Whatever I have, whatever, whenever. So client priority filled in with my own thing if I don't hear from the client in time.
Yeah,
So
I think that's one of the other big benefits of having personal projects is like, you know, you rarely will have periods of dead space because there's just too much to do. So it's like the only downside is, on that modality thing is like the fact that when you get into your own stuff and then you have to alternate back to client stuff and so on, it can kind of cause some task switching penalties that aren't super fun.
yeah, yeah, it's hard. I find that a lot, like because when you're in a project, your brain during downtime like solves problems in that project,
Yeah,
and it's really like unfulfilling to know the solution but not be able to execute it.
yeah,
And so if my brain's like, oh, I just solved the last three pieces of the puzzle, for this animation, and then I can't get to that animation for a week, it like
yeah.
just eats at me. It's kind of a strange state of minds to be in, and it's really sometimes you have to like just knock that out really fast or write it down or something because
Yeah.
if it just stays in your brain, it just occupies space and is weird.
Yeah, I mean that was a huge problem I used to have when freelancing was just like shutting that part of the brain off just to like go see a movie or something,
Right.
cuz like with the family because I'd just be constantly in work mode. Like it was just really hard. Still, as a creative it is hard, but I do find when you do that daily habit stuff,
Mm,
it becomes less like all consuming because you're frequently um, hitting the page.
right.
So it's like I'm not really thinking too much about what's going to happen next in quarterly because I'm always thinking about it on a daily basis. So rarely am I like coming across something that like hits me for like the entire day and like sucks up my free time's brain.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, maybe that's an interesting topic to kind of dip into. I don't know.
Yeah. We don't have a topic yet.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
do
we
you,
could get into that. So how do you shut off um, the creative problem solving brain? And like do you find that well, I guess maybe we should do like an intro for it or
yeah,
something. I don't know. Does
why don't you jump in
that
on the
sound good to you?
intro? Yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
So, do you want to do the today's topic is?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
So today's topic is um it's hard to verbalize like in a short sentence what it is, but the general basis is when you're working on creative projects, often your brain goes into a kind of problem solving mode by default, and that problem solving mode can just like haunt you throughout your time off as well as your time on at work. And so when you're working on your own personal projects, you generally are going to have to balance them with paid work. And so I thought it would be an interesting topic to kind of talk about the methods of balance and whether that kind of continues to haunt creatives all the time, and like maybe get into some possible methods of like how to either shut that off or activate it. that might be kind of an interesting topic to dip into.
Yeah, and I think it's also I want to throw into the mix, like in being very intentional about when you're thinking about what, because I will catch myself, hanging out with my daughter or eating dinner with the family, and I'm not there.
Yeah,
I'm off somewhere else. Like writing expressions in my head, or trying to
yeah,
figure out the composition of something. And and what I've found, and I don't know if this is like overly simplistic, um, but I have to like make a conscious decision, and I literally think like, oh, I'm in family time now. Like I'm gonna be present, and I will
yeah,
put my phone in my pocket, and I will begin engaging in the conversation and ask people about what's going on and answer questions. But like as soon as I catch myself giving the answers where, my wife would be like, "So how's your day?" And I like pause for like 10 seconds while I'm like thinking through a problem, and then I go, "I was fine. Yeah, it was good." And then she's like, and then I'm like, "Oh, sorry, I was working through something." And then also the understanding from your family where there are kind of like those moments where it's like strike where the iron is hot, and
yeah,
those are pretty rare. But sometimes I've gotten to the point where I can kind of tell like, hey, sorry, I need to get this down really fast, and if I can get it into a form that I can remember it later, I can finish solving that problem later. But like, I just need to get it into my sketchbook or my iPad and just be like, take a note, And sometimes those don't even make sense to anybody, or just draw a quick thumbnail or something, and then I'm like, okay, now I can be here. I just needed to kind of offload that before I
yeah.
could kind of be present.
No, those are both really good tactics. I find that for me, it's more of the importance of kind of having a daily habit. So, like, just by doing things in short sequence, as opposed to like big bursts. Um, I tend to it's like kind of like getting to exercise that part of the brain so that that part's been worked, and so it's going to bug me less. Um, and then it's easier to kind of switch off. But I too also have to make like a pretty conscious effort to try, like, like for instance, if Ben wants to kind of watch um Paw Patrol together, and play with toys and stuff, I have to get in dad mode and kind of get
Right.
in the zone and like be able to be present for him. And that definitely has to be a conscious choice, because it is tempting to go one of two routes, which is like, one would be like the, well, I'm exhausted from work kind of route, or the other, oh, there's limited time, so I have to think about this thing because I need to work on this thing, and being just like constant work mode. Um, and so yeah, the idea of like making a kind of conscious choice, and then I agree with you on the idea too of, sometimes there are also times and seasons where you just have to be on, like,
Yeah.
a lot, and like if I have a really, important client who needs something tomorrow, I have to go into like hyperdrive of that, and then kind of do the reverse where I'm like, it's not family time, it's crunch time,
Right.
um, but it is fascinating to me how I struggle with that less now that I have a daily habit of working on creative work. Like, it's easier for me to kind of have a moment, when I'm done, of just going, okay, I'm done, and step back and not even really open that mode of thinking till I get home. I don't know if
Yeah.
that makes sense, but
Yeah. I also think environment and habit come into play. Um, because and we've talked about this in the past, like when I was a young art director, um, you're solving hundreds of problems a day for dozens of different people, and you're balancing weird internal politics plus like suppliers, and plus like your team, and the people that your team are having to interact with. And so a lot of it becomes very much like kind of rapid fire, kind of Gatling gun, like kind of receive and give,
yeah,
and so I remember for a while I would come home and and at first it was really problematic because I lived like 2 miles from home, and so it didn't take me or I'm sorry, I lived 2 miles from work, and so it didn't take me very long to get home. And I remember coming home and it would cause problems because like my wife and I, we don't order each other around. She doesn't give me like a honey-do list, and I don't, come home and put my foot down on stuff or whatever the normal kind of expectations that you get off of sitcoms are. We ask each other to do things, and we request time, and like we're very like respectful of each other and each other's time. And so when I would get home and still be in that work mode, I'd be like, all right, this needs to happen. I need you to get this done by this time, and then tell me how that goes. And then I need this, and she's like, whoa, hey, I don't work for you. And so eventually I recognized that because I had started with like a 45-minute commute,
Yeah.
that had become part of my routine to allow my brain like the time and the environment to like recognize like you're going into work now. Now
Yeah.
you think like this, and you're going home now. Now you think like this. There's kind of that idea that you are at work who you are at home. And I think like core value that is true. Like if you're a dishonest person, that kind of permeates every aspect of your life. But I think
Yeah.
modes of thinking and operating are way different in different environments. Like
100.
and so I had to actually like because my commute time got shortened, I had to like kind of like make conscious decisions to be like, in the home, this is kind of the hierarchy. It's a very flat structure. In the workforce, it's a very vertical structure. And so like thinking about like my goals and my priorities with my
Yeah.
relationships with people, um, is really important. And so, and the way that we communicate, like I'm a communications professional, I have degrees in it, and like the way that we communicate with each other is significant and important. And
Yeah.
so I make sure to not use specific language with people on equal footing that I do with other people who are above or below me in a hierarchical structure. You speak differently, to a child, to an employee, to a superior. Those are different than somebody who's on the same level of hierarchy, like your spouse or your friends. Those are different modes of speech, and I feel like the modes of speech that I use also helps me stay in the right mindset. And so if you're used to kind of like bossing your family members around, you're going to have difficulty switching mindsets, and it's going to damage and hurt your relationships.
Yeah. 100%. And I've had that struggle too, where it's like, almost getting in a like, well, I'm giving a directive kind of moment,
Right.
and then be like, wait, what am I talking about? I don't
Right.
give directives here,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And
But it
it's
is,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, it is a weird switch, because you have to do it so quickly, like without thinking um, too much at work. It's like you almost have to make it like impulse because you have to make quick decisions
Right.
and lead people out of pretty hairy situations sometimes very quickly. So yeah, that was a definite struggle for me. Still continues to be occasionally.
Yeah, I'm doing that right now. I keep catching myself. We just got our tax return, and we are due for a new vehicle. Um, and what I would like and what my wife would like are drastically different. But it's going to be her. She's going to be driving. It's going to be her primary vehicle. I've got my motorcycle,
Yeah,
and so I keep catching myself trying to influence that decision as if I was getting buy-in from a group of people at work. And then I'm like, no, I'm giving my opinion. This isn't my decision. And so I keep like trying to influence it, and then I catch myself being like, no, 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 this is different. And so we're probably going to end up with a minivan is what's going to happen for our family of four. Um, and that's okay. But I have to like make a conscious decision to be okay with that, because I'm normally like, I want, I want a Highlander, I want a Pilot, I want something like that. I don't want another minivan. I hate minivans, but it's not my thing. And so
Yeah.
anyway, it's kind of like that type of thing. Also, I was thinking like the way that we communicate with clients and the way that we communicate with collaborators can also help like switch different modes. And I was just noticing this with Scott over the weekend that like um, we have a great working relationship. We haven't collaborated on anything before. We're friends and we know each other, and we've had long conversations on here and on Artcasters and everything. Um, but when it came to collaboration, I noticed that both of us were, I don't want to say careful, because neither of us is like going to get offended or hurt or anything, but very intentional with like the requests that we're making and the suggestions that we're making. And ultimately it's his client. And so I'm working for him. And so I'm making sure to do this. But when I speak to clients, I found that if you like give there's this kind of razor's edge of balance where if you misunderstand what I'm about to say, you're going to end up being like an overbearing jerk, right? But if you apologize a lot and you give a ton of control, like verbally, to whatever's going on, and you become very subservient to your clients, then you're not servicing your clients well. And on the
Yeah.
flip side of that, if you start bossing them around and you start like trying to speak from some sort of elitist ivory tower about what, you deserve and things like that, then you're also like you've become too overbearing. And so the way that we communicate with our clients and stuff is also very intentional, because of
Yeah.
the mindset. And if I start like, hey, whatever you need, and the customer is always right is really only true in retail. Um, and so if I start like that type of mentality of just, hey, I'll do whatever you need, whatever it is, and just let me know, and I'm not here to think, I'm not here to help, I'm just here to do, I'm just voice activated designer guy. As soon as I start communicating that way with a client, the relationship shot.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense because there are times, especially with clients, where they don't know how bad what they're asking for is,
Right.
um, and you're kind of the expert, so it's on you to at least make it clear to the client what would be a better solution.
Yeah.
Um, but if you're the overly critical guy or the person who's like, well, I have a degree in blah blah blah, that's a really quick way to turn somebody off. And you just, if you imagine what that would be like from perspective of somebody ordering a hamburger and you're like, hey, I want my hamburger done this way. And the person's like, well, how long have you been cooking? I've been cooking for a long time. That's not how you want your hamburger. And you're like, no, I'm pretty sure I want my hamburger. Well, I'm a cook and I did all this stuff and I've done professional cooking for this long. How long have you done professional cooking? Eventually, you're just going to be like, you know what? I'm just going to another restaurant. It's absurd, man. Like I
Yeah.
just,
Right.
you know, so it's that fine line of like, you do want to give good customer service. And at the end of the day, it is their call to make.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Depending on where you're at. If you're like some rock star artist who has the ability to call the shots however you want, and you can just pick and choose whatever clients you want, good on you.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can get that way. You can get that way either by being kind of the top of your game, kind of best in class in your niche, or you can get that way by having a day job and getting to be very picky with the clients that you do choose to take on. Like
Yeah.
if I don't need clients, and so when somebody comes to me and and they say, hey, I've got this project, I get to look at that project and say, that seems like something I would enjoy doing, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Or that seems something that I wouldn't enjoy doing, so let me introduce you to one of my friends. You
No,
know?
that is one of the greatest joys of having my day job is the ability to turn things down.
Yeah.
Um, and not that I like turning things down, but Generally, the clients I take on right now are ones I've had for years that are incredibly good. And then other than that, it'll be like, does it sound like fun? If not, why do I need to do it?
Yeah. I like turning stuff down where I'm not going to enjoy doing it. And that's not because I'm like, I only do stuff that's fun. It's because if I hate it, it's not gonna be the best for the client. And
Yeah.
so I would rather give them, somebody who's gonna be super into the project. And so there are things that I'll knock out real fast in an afternoon, but if it's gonna take me time and uh, and I'm not going to like it, then I know hundreds of students that would just love the experience, and I know lots of designers and illustrators that that have different interests than I do and different styles and things like that. I mean, one of my favorite projects, though, just along these lines, we are way off on a tangent now. I just realized, but one of my favorite projects, they came to me having first gone to Fiverr or one of those kind of whatever you want to call those places, the super cheap, like not worth working
Design
for
build.
things. Yeah, yeah, right. And they had gotten some illustrations that were very painterly, and they almost looked like kind of like high fantasy, like oil painting, Frazetta stuff. Um, and and they were like, "We want you to do this. How much would you charge?" And I said, "Well, before I even take this on, which I think the concept of this project would be phenomenal. Like, look at my portfolio, and you can tell that I do not know how to paint. I illustrate very well, but I don't know how to do the style that you're showing me. So if you want the concept in my style, I can do that. But if you want like a painterly style, then I'm gonna have to give you to somebody else because I'm not gonna learn to paint on your dime. And so and they looked at it and they said, no, I love it. I think it's great. And so I'm really glad that I was able to communicate with them at the beginning, like, and not try to be like, oh, I need the money, I need the job, and it paid really well. It was a great job, and I still love that. I just talked about it today in class. It's the four horsemen of the apocalypse as motorcycle riders. Like, it's right up my alley, like highly symbolic, religious, and motorcycles. And so it was a great project. But had I just taken it because I was excited about it without clarifying, I bet I would have, like turned in all these inked lines and flats and stuff, and they would have been like, what the crap is this? Like, I expected like a Frazetta painting, you know.
Yeah.
But I said that at the beginning, and then they were like, yeah, I think that'll work. I think that's great.
Yeah. Managing expectations is a massively, that's something that you hopefully learn early, but you'll definitely learn at some point in illustration and design. And hopefully you'll learn it sooner than later because all it takes is one disappointed client that you didn't manage the expectations of. Um, and that just goes for anything really.
or
Outside
or
just
or you
art.
won't learn that, and you'll become one of those really bitter, angry people that changes careers and blames
Yeah.
bad clients. Oh, it's
Oh, yeah.
all bad clients, and the whole industry is trying to take advantage of you and everything. And it's like, while that does exist, if you manage the expectations correctly, then you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I were to say, I don't paint, this is what I do, look at my work, do you want what I can offer? And they said, no, we want you to paint, I would say, I don't do that. So on and off we go. That's not a bad client. That's just not a fit for me.
Yeah.
Uh, but had I not managed that expectation, and then they get super mad at me, and we go through these like series of like hundreds of revisions, and there's project creep, and I'm losing my shirt on the project, like, I'm gonna be like, oh, this client is terrible, and blah 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 blah, blah, when really it was my fault for not managing the expectations in the beginning. And so, yeah, it is really interesting. You're either going to learn that or you're not going to do this very long.
Yeah. That's a very fair point. And also the neat thing is, if you like recommend to a client, like somebody who knocks it out of the park, you've actually also created a really good relationship with a potential client. Wow, we are off on a tangent though.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, I feel like honestly, I don't really have too much to add to that, except I will say I do think it's important to have that part of your brain going, especially during dead periods, like when you're working on your own personal creative projects, you kind of open Pandora's box
Yeah.
to sort of allow your brain to start working on these problems, because really, as visual artists, we're just problem solvers. And so, like, when you start solving complex problems that you really want to solve, be prepared for that to kind of follow you in your free time. But I do think it is important to also acknowledge when that starts overloading and kind of consuming your free time. Like, one of the reasons I took a day job instead of just doing freelance, one of the main components was I had a lot of difficulty being present for my family
Yeah.
when my son was first born, because I was just working nonstop and I couldn't stop thinking about work, because I'm one of those paranoid, like, if there's not 10 clients lined up, then I'm going to be out of a job kind of guys. um, and so one of the things I like about the day job and this was something that consciously took time too, because the first few years of that day job were pretty all consuming. So I just dropped everything.
Yeah.
But one of the things I've learned really effectively is like how to kind of leave the work at work, but your own personal projects kind of work in the same way as like a 9 to 5 sometimes, where it's like it is important to be able to leave it where it is, and kind of acknowledge when it's like, maybe this isn't the best time to think about it, and like pick up tactics like Cory was talking about, like take a note or write it down, put it somewhere that you can leave it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I'm also curious just to know if anybody's watching this back, like you guys, most of our community are creating stuff. And so how do you guys handle that? How do you turn off the brain, like the creative brain, but not in a destructive way? Like how do you turn it off without cutting the pipeline, right?
Numb it
I,
with drugs and alcohol and abusive behavior. That's what you do.
that's
Just
always effective too.
just numb it into a cloud. That's what you should do. Yeah. Well. Yeah, I think that was great. And I think a couple more topics that could pop up. I think that we should cover in the future. Everybody is always, and I think we could talk about this at length. And probably Scott would be a great one to have. So maybe this will be Monday. But everybody's super hyper focused on getting clients and landing clients. Very few people like realize that in the beginning that like keeping clients and managing clients is like way more important than that.
Yeah.
And everybody always says, well, if I don't have any clients, then, I can't manage them or whatever. But like the clients are going to come. And if you give them like what they want and you manage the expectations well, and you turn them away or introduce them to somebody who's going to be a better fit in certain situations, like all of that means repeat work and word of mouth and all kinds of stuff, and it really starts to kind of snowball. So anyway, that'd be an interesting topic, is not getting
Yeah.
clients, but like keeping them and managing
Retain.
them and giving them the value that you can offer. And so yeah. Okay, so we have a Kickstarter that is still live. So if you are watching this now or watching this later, go check out 100 days of making comics.com/CORYK.
Yeah, that spells out Josh K, which is 100 days.
And you can pronounce it however you like, as long as you type CORYK. And so the idea is that we've got 28 indie comic book artists of varying different kind of backgrounds, all telling really cool stories about cryptids and crazy creatures and mythological beings, and a bunch of different things. And it's an anthology called Werewolves and Unicorns. We funded within the first 26 hours of the campaign. It slowed down a little bit in the last day or two, just because that's kind of normal for Kickstarters. So now would be a great time to back, and that'd be awesome. And so if you want to see some of Josh's work, some of my work, a lot of people in the chat, a lot of people in the community are involved. Go check that out on Kickstarter while it is available, because soon it will no longer be available, and you can only get it from the creators themselves. So that would be awesome. And you can also check out Josh's stuff by going to joshuakimball.com. And you can see quarterlystories.com. And if you want to see my stuff, you can always go to. Oh, dang, I thought those would be the credits. So this is why I need the buttons. That's the button I was going for. If you want to check out my stuff, you can go to corykerr.com, CORYKERR.com. And I'm going to start kind of plugging my email newsletter again because I want to do that. So corykerr.com/email is a good way to go for the very rare random times that I will be sending out newsletters. And I'm having to approve everybody who's leaving all these links. So if you'd like to support anybody in the chat for any particular reason, there's a few links in there from Scott and Josh, and I think probably others are going to start showing up. So anyway.
And be the 100daysofmakingcomics.com/Josh K. Just mentioning it and JOSHK. I don't know what's going on with the weird spelling earlier, but we just wanted to clarify that. By the way, Cory is killing it on this thing, so which is awesome. So.
Oh, I haven't checked the recent numbers.
The last ones I saw, you were pretty up there.
Okay, Scott and I think are kind of neck and neck. So
you guys are neck and neck.
Yeah. All right. We will see you guys in a couple days. Go make cool stuff.
Yes.